Well, 26 years after an unearthly child, Doctor Who came to an end with the strangely named episode or final adventure, Survival, which sadly the series did not survive after the conclusion. Of course, we know it made some comebacks. One failed one in a TV movie in 96, and then 2005. A new version of the series, really, that pretends to continue on the narrative set by the original show. But this one really was the final outing for Doctor Who in its original form. So this final, very shortened season for the Seventh Doctor had some high moments. Looking back on it, it's a similar thing I have with Star Trek The Next Generation. I was always harsh to the first two seasons of that show. Having rewatched the first season again, I was like, well, I was a little too hard on it. it's a little bit better than I remembered. And this season had its moments. Most of the shows weren't that great. But it probably would have been better had they ended on something like Ghostlight or something like that. Which, in fact, I think I read somewhere that they were going to do that. But I don't know, the deck got shuffled. Or maybe no, it was supposed to come after Fenric, I think. Something like that. But anyway, those two were stronger stories than this one, which does feature the return of the Master I think this is the only time the Seventh Doctor encountered the Master. But anyway, it was the last round for the Master in this. And other than the fact that this is the final adventure of Doctor Who, that's really the only significance it holds. It's another episode centering on Ace. After the others did it as well, which again seems to set a template that was followed upon later on in New Who, where the companions become way more important than they used to be, other than the fact that they were important to the Doctor as his friend and all that. But their whole backstory would be explored and then doubled down on after pretty much being settled, to where it takes up a lot of oxygen from the stories in it. But anyway, the similar things happen here for Ace. So, hey, you're back home for Ace's neighborhood, and then her friends keep disappearing. Oh no, what's going on? Well, there's this mysterious cat, and people get abducted, seemingly, by some cat people. And they teleport them to another planet. And the planet has this, I don't know, some kind of atmosphere or power that transforms people into into cat people. That you think it would be like they all become rather animalistic or bestial and whatnot. But specifically cats. But they become these cheetah people, and but instead of roaring and growling and stuff, they howl like werewolves. Which, considering this is people transforming into these cat people, I guess they're werecats. They turn into cheetahs specifically. I don't know why they didn't turn into lions or tigers and all that, but cheetahs. And the Master ended up stuck there, I guess, from the last time we saw him, where he seemingly met his demise. But that's always the case with villains like the Master. And so here he is, and so he sees his chance to lure the Doctor there, which of course happens, and somehow, he figures it out. Well, of course, he's been there a while, so the teleportation can happen with the turned people who become bestial to go out and hunt on other worlds, and all they had to do was tell one of the guys who was turning into a cat to go home, and so he does. When if you hold his hand while he goes, you zap yourself right back to Earth. So The Master figures this out with one of them. Ace is starting to turn bestial because she runs into one of the cheetah people who turned out to be one of her old friends who had already turned into a cheetah. No, not Wonder Woman's nemesis, but kind of. Anyway, so now Ace, her eyes glow yellow, and she can sniff her way to the Earth. And so the Doctor and her friends show up, and they're like, "Hey, great, we're home," and they go home. Meanwhile, the Master murders this coach guy that they had met earlier, and oh no, that's terrible. And then he takes over the whole, I don't know, athletic club or whatever, and sets them upon the Doctor, and well, it's, I don't know. And then Ace has to resist violence so she doesn't turn into a cat. And then her friend shows up and confronts the Master, but then the Master kills her. The Master and the Doctor end up back on the planet, and the Master says, "This is it, we have to fight to the death." The Doctor is like, "No, violence is wrong," and so he doesn't turn into a cat, and instantly is transported back to Earth right next to the TARDIS, all very conveniently. It was just pretty bad. And it's sad because it was their last shot. This is how it ended. They didn't know that at the time. They dubbed in, obviously, at the end with a little goodbye speech there where, there's all kinds of places for us to go and solve, or save people or whatever, and telling Ace they've got work to do. And off they go, ironically enough, into the woods like animals do. I mean, they're going to make their way back to the TARDIS, which is in the middle of the street somewhere. But nevertheless, that's how it goes. And, of course, seemingly the Master has met his demise on that dying planet. But later on, we understand the Doctor collects his remains from Skaro, who put him on trial for some reason, and is bringing him back to Gallifrey when suddenly things go awry. He shows up in Los Angeles and gets gunned down and turns into Paul McGann. Yeah, that's how that ends up for the 7th Doctor. Yeah. So anyway, kind of a lackluster ending to this, beloved and popular sci-fi franchise program, what have you. And but that's how things go. They kind of just peter out, You don't always get a chance to go out on a high. And more times than not, that's what happened to shows, even shows that are legendary and stuff like that. They kind of stayed on too long and became shadows of their former selves. And to a large extent, that happened to Doctor Who in the latter part of the 80s, even though there were some bright spots here and there was chances for things to get back on track, creatively anyway. It seems the odds were stacked against them no matter what they did, and certainly that's what happened. And so it ended. There was a fandom for it, obviously. Novels and comic books or comic strips and what have you continued on. And then always, a chatter about bringing it back in some form or fashion. Different initiatives, bringing Tom Baker back and stuff like that, doing a movie, on and on and on, ultimately culminating in the Paul McGann movie, which failed to garner the necessary viewings here in the States, since it had become an American production at the time. Had that happened, that would have been an odd thing to see how that would have played out. But more on that when I do revisit the Paul McGann Doctor Who movie. At some point, I'll get to New Who, but I'm not going to go all the way to Jodie. I reviewed all the Jodie episodes. Those will have to stay as the review for that. Capaldi, I will do his endeavors primarily because I really liked him in the role. and that was the high point of it. For the most part, he didn't really get the stories worthy of his talent, and it was a shame. But ultimately, this here Survival was the true final televised adventure of Doctor Who.